that's called a mortgage, and you can make your dream come true thanks to borrowing money from the bank, which you then need to pay back to the bank, so that the people who deposited money with the bank actually can get their money back as well. And the same goes for companies. When you're an entrepreneur, you need to start your company with some of your own money. That's called the capital that you put in your company. And then typically you go to a bank, and the bank will, it's difficult when you're just started as an entrepreneur, but after a few years, banks will lend to you so that you can then invest in new machinery, new equipment, growing your operations, so that you, grow your business and become more prosperous and successful. So that's exactly what banks do. They will look at projects that people have, and they will decide whether these are projects that are good enough for them to finance, are risky or not too risky. And of course, banks don't like to take too much risk because they know that they need to give the money back to the depositors. So the ideal bank is actually lending at an interest rate to its clients, and then getting the money back and lending again. So it's really this system where the bank is helping the bringing the money from where it is to where it needs to be for the prosperity of the country.
Yeah. Thank you, Constance. And I really like that analogy of, the infrastructure being the skeleton, the companies being the muscle, and financial institutions being the kind of the lifeblood of the country. Okay, great. So I think we have some time now for any audience questions. So I'll move to the audience Q&A here. Like I said, you guys can go on mic if you'd like to ask a question, or you can submit a question in the chat as well. And I'll read it out as well to Francis here. But yeah, does anyone have any questions you want to get us started with? Yeah, Lisa, go ahead. Let me see if it's allowing you to unmute here. Maybe my fault. Sorry, give me a second here. Sure. Do you want to submit your question in the chat for now? And then I will try and see if I can get the sound to work. Any questions? Let's see. Yeah, sorry, Lisa, I think I need to fix the unmuting settings. But do you want to write your question in the chat for now? Okay, so the question from Lisa is, you've seen many countries, crises, and changes. What, in your opinion, distinguishes a society that's truly developing and moving forward from the one that's simply surviving?
Oh, good. That's a very big question. Thank you, Lisa. I think the difference is in the people, to be honest. In a country where you have people that are willing to take risks and move forward, and you have a sufficient number of people who want to do this, then the country will move forward. I've seen a few countries indeed, and I can say it takes competence to run a country, but it also takes courage. Ukraine comes to mind, of course, but other countries as well. When I look at, it's easy to look at a country. For me, working with 42 different countries, and in the banking sector, it doesn't take very long for me to say, oh, okay, so that country needs to do whatever it is with their banking sector, reinforce the capital, lend more to young entrepreneurs. So that diagnostic is easy to draw. But what is more difficult is to say, okay, once I know what needs to be done, how do I identify someone who's actually willing to take this and say, yes, I want to do this, right? And in some countries, you have more people that are willing to step forward and take the lead and take the risk of failing as well. And in some countries, there's fewer, and sometimes there's very good reasons for it. You have powerful groups that don't want to see change, and people don't want to confront them. And sometimes it's dangerous to confront them as well. These sorts of disagreements are not necessarily resolved through dialogue. Sometimes people shoot one another as well. So it does take courage. But I think that's the big difference between those countries that succeed and those that succeed less. Of course, institutions work as well. I mean, if you're in the UK and you want to try something and someone wants to try to prevent you, well, you can go to court. Not so in many other countries. There's a lot of countries where courts are inefficient. So institutions matter as well. But in my opinion, what really matters is leaders with the courage and vision to make it happen.
It's interesting to hear. There are two questions in the chat here. One from David. Has your perspective on the role of banks changed as a result of the environmental crisis, so climate change and things like that?
It's also a very interesting question because, banks are in this role of bringing the money where it needs to go, have a big responsibility of choosing the right projects. And so increasingly, they have been asked to also choose projects that are not just financially sensible, but also make sense from an environmental standpoint and make sense from a social standpoint, and so on and so forth. And I think the good banks have embraced this because they realize that financing fossil fuels, for example, is a dead end. And that you are going to end up in financial difficulty over the long term. Today, if you want to finance, for example, a new coal plant anywhere in the world, well, chances are that coal plant is not going to be a very profitable investment because the cost of solar and wind and storage technologies is dropping very quickly. And so your coal-fired power plant, your gas-fired power plant is not going to work very well. And from that standpoint, banks have embraced this change. The notion, in fact, it's less risky to do solar and wind than to do coal has helped them, of course. So there's a kind of a conjunction of the financial profit prospect and environmental role that work well together. But when a few years ago, banks didn't realize that really very much. And I was faced with the banks and that were telling me, well, look, I mean, my job is to take risks and to find things to finance, not to do the good thing from an environmental standpoint. And then I tried to speak their language. And then I would go and say, okay, but if you finance a building in your country, and you don't realize that you need to do a building that will be able to work when it's 45 degrees in the summer. And it's not a building that is only going to work until 40 degrees. Then chances are people are actually going to want to live in that building and you will get rent. So it will be less risky to finance a good, well-insulated building than to finance a poorly insulated building. Bankers understand that language. And so that's how we kind of engage with them as well, in order to make sure that they do the right thing.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing there is like it's important for banks to consider the environmental crisis also as like a financial risk as well, not just as a human problem, but something that's actually going to affect their ability to do their work. Asking, oh yeah, go ahead, Francis.
No, I'm just looking at the questions in the chat. So the answer, Anna, your question about have I ever thought about working in finance when I was younger? Absolutely not. Okay, when I graduated, so you're now in before your university years, I certainly didn't think of becoming a banker, and even when I graduated, I I joined an accounting firm, and I was doing some work as a consultant with clients, and banking was the last thing that I really wanted to be involved with, because I thought I want to see things that actually move, right? I want to see production line, I want to see tractors, I want to see building. I went to one of the most interesting projects I worked on was a dam on the Yellow River in China, which was a huge project, and that was making me very enthusiastic. And then I came to banking a bit by accident when I wanted to leave consulting, and I was in Paris at the time, and I said I want to join a French company with leadership ambitions in the world. So I talked to the likes of Carrefour in retail and Auchan, that I know is in Ukraine, and so on. And then somehow I managed to convince BNP Paribas that I knew something about banking, and they were naive enough to believe me. And so that's how that's when they hired me. And then I actually realized that banking is a business that requires a lot of, in fact, more thinking than I thought, and more subtlety than I thought. And that, in fact, through banking and through money, you can really do the right thing. And so that's why I'm now at the EBRD, because EBRD is a bank, not like a normal bank. The EBRD is a development bank. So we are owned by countries, and Ukraine is one of our shareholder countries. And we invest in those countries for the right reasons, to do the right thing in those countries. And so that I don't regret making that choice. Maybe I regret not thinking about it when I was younger. So you're always wiser when you have more experience. But certainly when I was younger, I never thought of joining a bank. Now we have Timothy is asking us a very interesting question around. I can see an entrepreneur here. If you take money from a bank and then put it on deposit on another bank, and then, all right, so that's not going to work, because you are going to pay more for the credit than the deposit that you are going to receive, than the money you receive for depositing your money with the bank. A bank will take your money in a deposit at a lower interest rate than what they lend you for. So you need to have some capital to start with, right? Now, if you want to create something, I would more encourage you to have an idea and to say, look, for example, I'm going to set up a cell phone repair company. I'm going to use some of my money to buy the tools, and then I will go to the bank and get some money to buy more tools and to be able to grow my business faster. I don't think what you want to do there quite works, but it's good to have ideas. I like the fact that you have this sort of entrepreneurial ideas. At what age have I started to work with finance? Let me think. 32, 33, something like this, 35 maybe. And I'm now 57 as of last week. So that's 20 years or so. Nick is asking about subjects to prioritize in school. Again, I mean, that's a very difficult question. In the French system, you don't have A levels like in the UK. So you have some level of specialization at the time of when you go for your high school diploma, which we call a baccalaureate. But it's still relatively broad. So everyone has languages, everyone has French, everyone has philosophy, everyone has history and geography and so on. And then there's and everyone has some degree of math. And then what makes a difference in the French system is how much weight is given to each of these subjects. But you don't really have 2 or 3 that you need to work with. So I liked math. I wasn't too keen on physics, to be honest. That wasn't my thing. I liked history very much as well. And I've always thought that understanding history is the beginning of understanding who you're talking to. And that is also I must say my experience confirms this. If you go to a country and you try to establish relationship with entrepreneurs in that country, you talk about banking, yes, you have a relationship, but you show that you understand their culture and their history, you have a strong relationship. You become their friend, you become their partner. So it's important to understand. In my job, it's important to understand the culture and the history of other peoples. So I very much liked that. Languages also. I mean, you are all in a situation where you all speak Ukrainian at home, maybe with your parents, or you have a background from Ukraine and you speak English now, and speaking languages is such a precious gift. And I don't think, I mean, maybe in a few years' time we will all have these magic glasses with AI that translate each other's, and we'll all be speaking our own language and understand one another. Maybe that's a dream, but I can tell you, if you're in the middle of nowhere and you break those glasses, you'll be happy you speak the language. So I think languages is a very important skill to have. What advice would I give to my 20-year-old? I think one thing it's important to be very good at what you do, and it's important to do things that you like to do. Because if you do something you really like, chances are you're going to be good at it, and chances are then you're going to shine, and then you're going to be successful. And there's nothing like success to bring success. They say success breeds success. And whether that's something in your personal life or whether it's something in your business life, I think, of course, you need to learn, you need to keep learning. By the way, you keep learning after you've gone out of school. Huh? If you believe that you're going to university and then you're going to get a degree and then you're going to stop learning, think again. You're going to have to learn for your whole life, and it's so much better that way, actually, because it's very interesting to learn new things anyway. So keep learning, but do things that you like, and so if someone tells you, oh, there's only one thing that matters in life is that you should be a doctor or you should be an architect or don't listen to them. Listen to what your heart tells you about the career you want to have. And then you can be you'll be more successful if you follow that path. Of course, assuming that there's a career, right? I mean, I'm not talking about playing football here, which is a career for just a few, okay? It's a career where a lot of people want to do it, and a lot of people who do it very well end up not making much progress because you really need to be in the top 0.01% in order to be successful in that profession. So you also need to consider the probability of success, I think.
Aria, do you want to ask the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, so hello, and I have a question. So what would you recommend to young people that are aspire to build a career in international finance? And what would be your advice for that people that are looking for maybe internships in that area or like some practice?
Okay. Well, for a career in international finance, I would pursue a university degree, of course. I know in the UK it's more diversified because you can study archaeology and become a banker after that, right? So in France, it's more advisable to do a business degree, or maybe if you want to go into trading and that sort of things, and engineering, math oriented degree. But that's in the UK, brilliant studies help. And then internships or such opportunities, a lot of the financial institutions in this country have internship programs, so you should apply to those when is the time. I don't think now is the time, to be honest. you wait a little bit until you have a bit more study years and relevant knowledge from your studies, and you know, try to talk to people who are in that field as well. I think it's very important because we all have you know, ideas about what a profession is, but until you've talked to someone who is actually in that profession, a lot of those ideas can be wrong, in fact. So it's important to have practical experience, because doing trying something out while you're still a student, if you realize that you don't like it, is much better than trying the same thing after your degree, and then when you're changing your career is harder as you gain experience. Because people will start seeing you as a banker, start seeing you as a football player, start seeing you as an architect, and so on. And so, you know, the more experience you accumulate, the more difficult it is to change tracks. Lisa, I think you had a question, and then there's a few more in the chat as well.
Yeah, one more question for me. So you're definitely remarkably intelligent and experienced in the topic of financing and banking. And what is your personal opinion on the topic? Where can you find the country? What country should it be with the most convenient and pleasant conditions for those who want to start a business but can't boast with enormous start capital?
Okay. You know, starting a business, a lot of countries try to make it easy. But it's not just about formalities. You know, of course, the first thing you do when you start a business is you need to register your business, you need to get a permission, and so on and so forth. And okay. But what really matters is whether you have something in your mind where you think it's going to work. Whether it's a type of service that is not offered, whether you can bake the best bread in London and therefore you're going to open a bakery, or some business idea. And so the best place for you to open a business is a place where you can implement that business idea. So if you look through the list of countries, there's rankings out there that you know, explain to you that it's easiest to start a business in, I don't know, Denmark. All right, but then practically, Denmark is an impossible language to learn. Okay, Danish. You know, people who've tried tell you that in fact what you need to do if you want to live in Denmark and you're not Danish is you learn Swedish and they will understand you. Okay, because Danish is absolutely impossible to learn. But you know, and then you go there, and how are you going to do your business if you don't speak the language? You know, who's going to be your first client? Who's going to be your first contact, and so on and so forth, right? So the starting a business is a very big decision. It's a very courageous decision as well, because you'll take a lot of risks and you'll have to have a lot of strength, inner strength. Entrepreneurs I know are unstoppable people. Okay, there are people who you know, fail and continue and fail again and continue again, and it takes a great strength of mind to be a successful entrepreneur. So the best place to do it is the place where you feel at ease doing it. Yes, if it's a place where financing is abundant and formalities are easy, that's better. But you know, I see fantastic entrepreneurs in Ukraine, which is not an easy country to be an entrepreneur in from a formality and access to finance standpoint. And what really matters is the quality of your idea and your perseverance and persistence as an entrepreneur. Daria, and then I'll go to the chat as well.
Yeah, so thank you for answer for the first question. And I have another question also. So how do you think the financial area will be changed in like 5-10 years? And what we should start learning now as a young people?
Mm-hmm. Well, if I knew. Look, I think what you're going to see in the financial sector is the more technology. And that technology is going to help do things more quickly. And it also is going to help understand the clients better. So say, for example, Daria, if I take you as an example, now if you go to a bank, the bank knows you as a young lady. I don't know how old you are, you know, and then they are going to say, okay, if you have your parents' authorization, I can give you a deposit, a savings account, and so on and so forth. If you fast forward to 10 years, the bank will know you as a student who has done what kind of studies, who has ideas of entrepreneurship, and they will have a way to provide you with the financing and the financial products that are much more tailored than they can do today. Banking is an industry that will benefit a lot from this technology change. There's also a lot of automation coming. And one advice I would give to you as you look at your careers for the next, 50, 60 years, is that the more technical the job, the bigger the risk that AI is going to take your job. And the more human the job, the more you have to talk to clients, the more you have to convince people. These are the last jobs that AI are going to take. Okay? So if you look at your own future and your own career, of course, some people are more comfortable speaking, and I'm happy when I'm with clients and then we're trying to resolve a problem. Some people prefer to be working in a very detailed way, very thorough, and so on and so forth. So personal preferences play a role, but I would, I think finance is going to go the way of more automation and more personalized service for the clients, and it's important to be staying on top of it. I've been doing development finance for 16 years, and it's now been 34 years that I'm working. So between the previous jobs I've had before EBRD and now with EBRD. And in which country is finance done the easiest? It's a difficult one. I would say probably Turkey comes to mind as a country where there's a lot of banking services. It's of course there's more financing available in advanced countries like in the UK, in Germany, in France, and so on. But we don't work in those countries. We only work in countries from Central and Eastern Europe and all the way to Mongolia, and then now we work in North Africa, and we start in Sub-Saharan Africa this year. So these are countries where it's not easy to get access to finance, especially for young entrepreneurs, for small and medium-sized businesses, and so on. Access to finance for small businesses is always more difficult than for large businesses. Okay? And that's true in the UK as well, by the way, and in France, and it's just true everywhere. But countries with a lot of options for finance and vibrant banks that compete with one another, that's really important, because if banks compete, chances are more people are going to want you as a client, right? So so if more people want you as a client, Alex, then you will be more successful getting some finance from the banks. Alina, over to you.
People often say that doing business with your family or friends can ruin relationships because of money issues. So keep both successful cooperation and friendship without losing either.
Yes, it's a very good question. They say if you lend money to a friend, you risk losing your money and losing your friend. So it's better to lend money to someone who's not your friend. But at the same time, I mean, I was recently in Turkey visiting the region that was hard hit by the earthquake of a few years ago. And I met a fantastic business which is run by 3 brothers, and it's like the 4th generation business. So, and they do it, and they know already the next generation who is going to take over the business. So there's no absolute rule, but when you go into business with a friend, you have to ask yourself how well you know that friend before you do it, right? It's because a lot of friendships are not necessarily very deep or very and business is different from friendship, right? I mean, having going on a hike with a friend and having a drink or a dinner and playing whatever sports with that friend doesn't tell you much about how serious they are, how the qualities for success in business are not necessarily the same as the qualities for a good friend. So it's I'm not going to say never go in business with a friend, because a lot of businesses, very successful businesses, have been started by pairs of friends. But what I'm saying is, be sure you know what you're going into. And indeed, yes, if you go into difficulties and you disagree, chances are you lose the friend as well as you lose your money.
It's conscious of time here. I think we'll probably take Daria's question and then Andrew's question in the chat before we close it today. So Daria, go ahead and ask your question if you like.
Yes, sorry, I just have some internet issues. I'm so sorry for a lot of questions. I hope that there is no limit for questions. And my another question is, you have mentioned about Ukrainian entrepreneurships, that there are a lot of entrepreneurs here, and we can take an example of them. So maybe which entrepreneurs you would recommend to take a look and take their experience, maybe explore their experience, something like this?
I mean, you know your country better than me, I suppose. But one of my friends who's a great entrepreneur in Ukraine is a guy named Andrei Stavnitsa. He runs a port in Odessa, and he's now actually in the war. He's donated some of his money and gathered some other funds from people like Richard Branson and so on to open a hospital for war veterans in Lviv. Called Superhumans. You might have heard of Superhumans. And Andrei is a great guy. So if you want to take an example, and that's only one or two of the things that he does, he also runs the private investments. And so so if you want to take a model, there's plenty of good models in Ukraine, but you might as well want to check Andrei. And if you ever meet him, you can say hi from me. Now, Andrei, yes, we will continue to support Ukraine. I said I lived in Ukraine from 2014 to 2018, actually almost for 5 years. And these were fantastic years for me in terms of having, both professional opportunities, but also the feeling of being useful to the country, working with the government and with the local entrepreneurs. And last time I was in Ukraine was, I think, in May. And I was in January, I was in May. I'm probably going to go back sometime in the winter. It's a bit these days, unfortunately, we have constraints on going to Ukraine. I remember when I was living there, I would go to London or go to Paris for the weekend and, take the plane in Boryspil and be in Paris 3 hours later. Unfortunately, now it's 3 hours to Warsaw and then 15 hours in the car or something. So it's not like you can go to Ukraine for I remember once I was coming back to London and there was some minor crisis with the Ukrainian government, and the finance minister called me. It was like 8 p.m. I was in the cab coming from Heathrow to my hotel, and he goes, "Can you be in Kiev tomorrow morning?" And I'm like, "No, I can't. I've just arrived in London, so unless you send me a fighter jet from the Ukrainian Air Force to pick me up, that's not gonna work." But I still managed to take the plane the next morning, and instead of having a meeting with the Prime Minister at 10 in the morning, we had it at 5 in the afternoon. And I took the 9 p.m. flight back to London because I needed to be in London the next day. And so, you could do that. You can't do this anymore. I hope soon it will be possible to do it again. But yes, I love your country. It's so beautiful. And and such a pleasure and such a joy to work with my friends in Ukraine.
Great. Thank you so much, Francis. We really appreciate you coming to speak to us today. Do you have any closing comments before we end here? Yeah.
No, I mean, other than to say thank you for listening to me, and remember that the future of Ukraine is in this room, okay? And it's not me.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Francis. Really appreciate it. And thank you guys for coming. Great questions today. So really appreciate all your questions as well.
Thank you.
Have a great
And
day, everyone.
you know superhumans, very good. Okay. But if you know Olga, it's almost as good as knowing Andre. She's great, by the way. She's a great friend too. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, Francis. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
you.
Have a
Bye.
good
Thank
day.
you for the lesson.
Thank you so
See you
much.
guys.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye
Bye.
bye. Thanks you for